GildedNightshade videos contain 79% actual reality.
So I saw Eclipse 2 days ago. I don't really have a purpose for going to have seen it. I mean, I'm not a fan of the entire saga, to be honest. But it was my sister's birthday, and she wanted to see it, so I went and saw it with her. I decided to do a review mostly because, I don't know, everyone expected it to be some sort of blockbuster masterpiece, considering the series it was based on was phenomenal. I admit, the special effects were breathtaking, but Eclipse failed to impress me. I mean, it was just another stereotypical teen drama, just with mythological creatures, who have been tampered with in their own environments, might I add. The story centers around sulky teenager Bella Swan as she nears her high school graduation. Now, if you haven't seen the last two movies, they mainly focus around her meeting and falling in love with a vampire, Edward Cullen, who she really has no reason to fall in love with, but did anyway. And then in the second book, to make things more complicated in her life, she happens to meet and befriend a boy named Jacob Black, who turns out to be a shapeshifter werewolf. Now, I don't really see how this could all bunch together, but Meyer, of course, and also the creators of this movie, found it necessary to make her choose which one to love forever. Now, of course, we all know who she's going to pick in the end, considering her utter devotion to him in the first two books and movies, but they decide to waste 2 full hours of our lives of her making this choice, and it really wasn't that great of a 2 hours. I mean, other than her emotional conflict, with quotation marks, nothing else really happens. I mean, there is an ongoing subplot in which 2 newborn vampires are going around and biting more people and making a huge vampire army for almost no apparent reason. And also the menace Victoria, who we all thought was dead in the first or second book, well, I did at least, until she was brought up again. She comes back and makes an antagonist, considering every story has to have an antagonist. Apparently, there wasn't enough conflict going on in the story, which there really wasn't. And while the special effects have improved by leaps and bounds, nothing else really has. The actors are all sulky and kind of half-hearted, aside from Taylor Lautner, who I really thought did a good job as Jacob. But I've always liked Jacob. He's a really original character in the series. I mean, but other than the acting was nothing special. I mean, Kirsten Stewart looked stoned half the time and didn't have enough personality for herself or her characters. And Robert Pattinson was not a very good female lead. I mean, there were just times when the camera would focus on his face for 5 whole seconds, and he didn't even say anything. He didn't have anything much intelligent to say. In the books, he was intelligent. That much I can give him. But in the movie, he just seemed boring, dull, apathetic, tired. Couldn't do enough to get him out of bed for work in the morning. Not to mention the guy is wearing more makeup than Zac Efron in High School Musical. I mean, really, lipstick. Come on! And don't even get me started on the whole sparkling thing. And yes, if you were wondering, not only does Bella have to choose between Edward and Jacob, but Edward and Jacob are fighting with each other over her. And why? I mean, she doesn't have a personality. The whole movie, she's just like, line. She doesn't ever actually accomplish anything. And she's like, come on guys, don't fight over me. She's this weird stuttering thing, too. She's one of the dullest characters I've ever read. And any of the interesting characters were just muted for this whole conflict. I mean, yeah, I admit it was cool when we found out about Jasper and Rosalie's past, but it was a bit weird the way they did it. And I admit, it was very faithful to the novel. And Eclipse is the novel in the Twilight Saga that I can tolerate the most, mostly because of its end scene. But, here's a spoiler. There's only one fight scene in the entire movie. It's not even that epic either, considering, well, you're not even really there for it. But one thing I do like how they incorporated is how they brought in the evil vampires for some time to break the tedium of the teenage drama going on in her life. Like, they brought in, I'm not sure if his name was Riley in the book, I can't really remember, but he was just going around and being hypnotized by the antagonist, Victoria, who's one of the most badass vampires in the entire series. Well, it's not really hard being badass when they all sparkle, but... And they're going around gathering this army to fight the Cullens because Edward killed Victoria's mate, apparently, to keep Bella safe, of course, because this girl cannot defend herself for her life. Pun intended. I just hate how she has to keep getting other people to defend herself. She can't figure out something that would involve no one getting hurt. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So now Victoria wants to kill Bella again, not this time for the smell of her blood, but this time to get revenge on Edward. It's just so cliche and unoriginal for a concept, the whole series concept of her falling in love with a vampire. That was original. This isn't. But I'm not supposed to be I'm not really talking about the book. I'm talking about the movie. But one thing that really did impress me in the movie was its soundtrack. Everything was mellow and cool. And it wasn't really a score, once again, but it was contemporary music, but it was a lot better than the contemporary music of the first and second movies. It was kind of just like lulling. I suppose they were trying to hypnotize you and going to see it a second time. All in all, I was not impressed with Eclipse, but I am curious to see what they do with Breaking Dawn, considering that is just one of the most strange books I've ever read. Well, that's not proper grammar. It's one of the strangest books I've ever read, if you don't want me to go into volatile profanity. I'm not a Twi fan. I'm not exactly a Twi hater either. I just never been a fan of it, really. Not even when I supposedly liked it did I really have a passion for this series. Maybe this is why I just don't like the movies. But if you're a Twi fan, you'll probably like it. I mean, there's hot guys. There's a lot of tension. Sad, I can't even think of something worth seeing. Oh, the soundtrack, but that doesn't really count. Well, if you're a Twi fan, the only thing I could say is that it's faithful to the book. Very much so. GildedNightshade.